Hello, Claire Yosa here from EU VAT Action with an update. As you will know, I was honoured to be at the Fiscalis event last week in Dublin, where the entire 28 nations of the EU sent representatives from their finance ministries. The intention behind the event was to look at the future of VAT inside the EU, particularly in the digital economy, so it was absolutely perfect for discussing the EU VAT mess. Now, we did achieve some miracles, which is fantastic. There were member states who really didn't believe that there was a problem, who by the end of the conference are actually very open to the idea of having a threshold. The most popular threshold idea is one below which you revert to your domestic VAT regime. So any losses on the EU VAT on an international basis are offset by the gains from the fact you're still paying VAT at home. There was a general acceptance that these rules are too severe and too complicated for micro businesses to comply with. And in fact, there was also a lot of discussion that SMEs and larger businesses have really struggled too. So there's a desire to create a threshold, and then what we're calling above that threshold, the soft landing, the simplification, making the rules as straightforward as you can for the next tier up, so the threshold doesn't just lead into a huge brick wall preventing business growth. This is fantastic news. This is what we've been talking about since November last year. It's what we've been asking for. The European Commission is going to propose legislation in the second half of 2016 to allow these two ideas to potentially become law. The challenge we face is the agreement in the room was by no means unanimous. Although it was widespread, there are still countries who don't believe this is a problem. I also had to listen to countries telling me they had not had a single complaint from an entrepreneur or small business owner in their country, even though I have actually been CC'd on the letters that were sent to them. So the message is not getting through. So one of the things we've agreed with Donato Raponi, who is the DG for VAT in the European Commission, is there'll be an email address from a member of his team that we will have very shortly, and I will let you know when we've got it, that can be used as a CC when you're writing to your finance ministry to tell them about your problems. The next stage for us as well is we're looking at some of the data that's now been released to create a calculated and evidence-based threshold that we can explain to member states will actually make sense. It will release most tiny businesses from the rules, but it will cost them pretty much nothing, less than their average quarterly currency fluctuations to apply. So that's the next stage there. We're also analysing the international survey data. The survey, our quantitative survey for small and micro businesses, is in 10 languages. Our huge project now is translating and analysing that, and then preparing a summary document for each of the member states who has had enough responses. So I desperately need multilingual volunteers to help me with the translation so that we can do the analysis and then translate the reports back into the native language. That is the next stage of our action. After that, we're going to be doing a massive shout out saying, please, please, please send these reports to your MEPs, your finance ministers. I know you're bored of me asking. These guys need to get bored of hearing from you. The other big thing is there are two OECD meetings happening. The OECD is an alliance of of countries across the world who want to make it easier to do business together. And one of the things they're very keen on is the place of supply VAT rules. We're already seeing Japan bringing these rules in next month. We've got New Zealand in the pipeline. Australia wants to do it. This is becoming worldwide. The latest OECD document, which is going to be discussed by the G20 leaders and finance ministers in October in Lima, makes quite scary reading. It holds up the EU as best practice because nobody's yet understood when they wrote that document how damaging this VAT change has accidentally been for the smallest businesses. So we're going to be calling on you prior to that summit to write to the G20 finance ministers and make sure that your finance minister, if he or she is attending, tells the OECD we have to have a threshold followed by a soft landing. Otherwise, all we're going to do is close the world's trading down and mean that everybody has to geo-block in order to stay in business. So keep your eyes on the campaign group. You can find us on www.euvataction.org. or EU VAT Action Campaign Group on Facebook. So there's one more thing you can help us with. We need to get in and meet with David Gauke, who's the Treasury Secretary in the UK for the second time, or with his boss George Osborne. We're not fussy. We'll meet with either or both of them. The thing is, these guys are very, very well protected by the civil servants who look after them. So if any of you have direct connections with David Gauke or George Osborne in the UK, please ask them to meet with us before the G20 OECD meeting. This is incredibly important for the next stage of these negotiations. If you can help us in any way, please let us know via the comments below this video, and you can tag me, Claire Yosa, to make sure I see it. So that's a summary. Fiscalis was hugely, hugely successful. It was an incredibly important meeting. There is widespread agreement that a threshold is desperately needed. There is currently no support for doing anything in the interim between the legislation being proposed and the 2 to 5 years for it coming into force. So our work and your support for the next few months needs to be getting the interim changes in so we can keep trading. Thank you so much for your support. I could feel the good wishes and the positive vibes. It was really an honour to be able to be there and represent you. And I can't wait to see where the next stage of this journey takes us.